All right, so we're going to talk about how these light levels are actually calculated in a way that, kind of descends as you get farther outward from the source. So I've already said that I use breadth first search algorithm. That's kind of a method of iterating the block faces. So, if you were to follow that algorithm, it would go to this one and then outward to these three. Then each of these three blocks will go outward to their own neighbors, and then so on and so forth until you cover everything. So that's kind of how we iterate the blocks there. But to actually determine the lighting levels, there is two ways that we could potentially do this, right? So let's say we want this block, right? We want to try and figure out what the lighting level is of this block. So the first most obvious way is to just do it based on the Euclidean distance, right? So you have this is stuff you probably learned in like high school or like grade school, but you have a squared here, you have a squared there, you have b squared here, and then this length right here would be your c squared, right? So the distance between this source and this block face would be the square root of c squared, which gives you c, right? So the problem with this, however, is that we are doing this calculation for every single block in this lighting area, which unfortunately, taking the square root of this number like this is an expensive calculation, right? So there are two ways that you can solve this, right? So the first way is to just move this to the GPU, right? Because the GPU is very good at math. So the first option is you just move these lighting calculations to the GPU, which could be a good option. Maybe in the future I change it to that. Maybe not. I'm not really sure yet. But the second option is to use a different form of distance calculation. So specifically, there's something called the Manhattan distance, and this is used in it's called Manhattan distance because it's like a taxi block, right, in New York. You go along the streets to whatever building you want to get to, and this is your Manhattan distance, or rather, it might be like this or something. But while the Euclidean distance is something like maybe, I don't know, 6.6, because it's the actual c squared, right? So this, let's use a different color. This would be like c squared, while this red would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be 6, right? Manhattan distance is 6. Euclidean distance is like 6.6. Realistically, it would be 1, 2, it would maybe be like 5 or like 4.5 if I just by looking at this. Anyway, these two distances are different equations and they give you different numbers essentially. However, the Manhattan distance is a lot faster than finding the calculating the square root of every single one of these distances, right? This is much faster. Just see how many lines are between the distance, the source, and the destination. So this is what I do now. I do the Manhattan distance calculation, and like I said before, the other option is to just do all of this math on the GPU, which would be even faster than doing the Manhattan calculation. Of course, this being a grid-based environment that we're working with, the Manhattan distance kind of makes a lot more sense than calculating the Euclidean distance. But that's about all I have for this video right now. It was kind of more of a specific video about a very specific thing, being light distances and how we calculate it. But that's pretty much all for now. I'm still working on the light D propagation, which is something completely different.